Welcome to our webinar to discuss how to propel your CMMC compliance to new heights with ServiceNow. I'm Stacy with ServiceNow, and I am joined today by Raj live in our office in Vienna, Virginia. And we also have Ben from Securitybricks and Chris from our a distinguished customer with CareSource. This session is going to talk about how to achieve and maintain CMMC level 2 compliance. We'll talk about some actionable strategies and expertise with Chris, who has firsthand experience, and we will review the accelerators with Securitybricks. But some of the things that are a little bit different with CMMC than some of your typical use cases with integrated risk management and third-party risk management are, number one, the contractual requirements that come along with CMMC compliance. Two, we have a scope that goes well beyond just the IT systems. And three, there's really an accountability for all in your actual supply chain ecosystem. So while it's not new for ServiceNow and we have the tools in place for many, many years, this is a use case that is showing a lot of interest in how to get started. So Raj, I'd like to kick over to you.
Thank you, Stacy. Starting, would like to thank ServiceNow, Carasoft, our government partner, and Chris from CareSource, who have helped, put this, who have brought this webinar together. Christine, Karina, and Ashley from our end, who have also helped get this all together in terms of logistics and getting this webinar going. So first and foremost, thank you all for joining. You've seen there's a lot of conversations about CMMC. For some of us who have been waiting for when is this going to go live, when do contractors have to start to look at things. We had a pleasant surprise on October 15th when they said that mid-December it'll go into effect, and then sometime in spring 25, you'll start to see it in contracts, etc. We'll walk through some more timelines. We want to make it a little more interactive. Our goal here is there's a lot of conversations about what CMMC is and what you need to do, but I think we want to take more from a customer and a contractor perspective. What do we need to do? Where do we need to get started? How do I go talk to my management about this? What is the impact of our business on it in terms of CUI and what has CUI? And I think Chris, I've started working with Chris for a year when he downloaded our accelerator for ServiceNow, and I've learned a lot from how they do things, right? And I think I requested, and he was kind enough to come over and share some of his thoughts on how he has worked with this management, how he is internally evangelizing the concept of CMMC. So it's going to be very interactive. Please feel free to ask questions. We have some questions for him, and so we're excited to have this, have you guys here, so we can at least try to, answer a few things or shed some light on this. So having said that, we'll start off with, what the CMMC rule is. We just want to make sure everybody here understands, you have something to do with CMMC. So the final rule came out, in October. Actually, before that, let's talk a little bit about who Securitybricks is. I think it'll be helpful. Securitybricks is a firm that's based here in the US. We are all US citizens. Many of us are veterans with clearance. And we essentially focus simple, cloud security and compliance. Two things that go with us is one, that we are an accredited FedRAMP third-party assessor. We're listed on the FedRAMP marketplace. We're also a CMMC C3PAO, and we are on the Cyber AP marketplace. We partner with the DoD. We have a number of people currently and in the past who have worked with us. Every few months, we get service members who come work with us and transition out to field of cybersecurity, and we are proud some of them have joined us as team members, so very happy about it. We are a ServiceNow partner. We actually been a vendor of ServiceNow for their IRM, SecOps, and other product teams since 2019, 2020. And many of the things like technology accelerator, cybersecurity accelerator, things that you've seen has been our joint work with the product teams. We then became a partner, and believe it or not, the first product we launched was CMMC Accelerator. We have two CMMC accelerators. One is a accelerator where you can do your assessment, And the second one is for contract flow down, essentially your subcontractor ecosystem. So that runs on the third-party risk module. So we have two accelerators. Apart from it, we have got FedRAMP, SOC 2, others that are out there. So as you can see, everything we do is compliance and security. And so we decided that, we felt that ServiceNow is the perfect platform to automate. We're also Microsoft partners, so we do have another CMMC accelerator on the Azure. Essentially can download and test your CMMC controls on GCC, GCC High, etc. So everything we do around is against how do you help you automate, but with a human touch. What does that mean? Well, we are a C3PAO, so we do audits today. We do assessments. So everything we do is from the lens of an auditor. Are you meeting the controls? Are you meeting the intent of the controls? Are you able to understand? So while we bring in some automation technical expertise, we also put in our auditor hats. And that's why these accelerators are built with that point of view. And everything you do around is to meet that end goal. So Chris will kind of give a little more about how they view it, but everything from looking at the boundaries, as you know, CMMC has four things like CUI assets, SP assets, security, protection assets, specialized assets. You have cloud service providers, external service providers with responsibility matrix. Then you have a contract ecosystem. How do you bring all these? Because if you have to get compliant, all these things, the controls have to meet for all these different entities. So the question really is to bring all that together. So that's who we are. And let's go into a little bit about the final rule. We are in the process of finishing updating our current accelerator that's already in the store. It's been there for a year and a half now, or almost, 2 years now. We are looking to update with the new rules. Nothing much has changed, but we just want to make sure that we haven't missed any of those 320 objectives that auditors look for in a CMMC, assessment, level 2 assessment. So here are the timelines. Again, let's be positive. If you have not started, good time to start. If you have started, it's a marathon. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen in Q1 or Q2. It'll take you some time to get to there. There are 50 some C3PAOs like us, and then there are about 300 or so CCAs. Each assessment requires 3 CCAs, so you kind of can do the math. We're hoping more will join, but the idea here is that is the phased approach. There is a shortage of auditors, but there are about 80,000 or so level 2 contractors that the DIP thinks that is going to need. So the idea is there's some self-assessment options there. Eventually, they're going to roll it into third-party assessment. So the timeline is pretty out there, so that they say it's going to take 3 years or so to kind of go into this, but you'll start to see new contracts, some of the requirements renewals. And again, it depends, I guess, on each contract officer, but just to give you that, where the new timelines, and again, these are published out in the final rule. Just to level set on the next slide, which let's talk a little bit about the levels, right? Everyone knows the CMMC 1.0 had 5 levels. If you've been around looking for it to come, and finally it came out and said we have 3 levels. We focused on this accelerator and automation and everything else on level 1 and level 2. So that way, if you're a level 2 and you're going through a C3PA audit, perfect. You got all the content. If you're level 1 and you handle FCI, but you still need to report, you can use either a vendor accelerator because your prime is asking you, or you can do a self-assessment. The idea here is level 2 was where we found a lot of people wanting to, it's going to be a big, a lot of people are going to have some challenges. So we built a lot of automation on level 2, comes with 110 objectives, 110 controls, 320 objectives, 801, 700 Rev 2 as published, with all things like questionnaires, attestation documents, sample evidence, the whole workflow. So we'll kind of do a demo. Ben will do a demo on it, but just to level set how we are looking at the accelerators as it applies to CMMC 2.0. So the next slide, we're going to talk, Christine, some of the pain points. Why did we do this automation, right? We speak probably 1 or 2 new contractors on a daily basis, right? Some of them are existing ServiceNow customers who have IRM. Some of them are new existing service customers looking to automate this. And or they just have no tools. They're just looking, saying, we got to go down this journey. Things that we look for, that we hear, right? The first questions are, hey, I need to know my boundary. I need to understand. I have so many cage codes. I have so many things that sometimes you acquired companies become part of companies. How do I make sure that I have a boundary that I'm defining? Within that boundary, should I have one big boundary? Should I have multiple boundaries? So can I go to multiple assessments? How do I then make sure that those assets are tagged as CUI or SP? How do I make sure it's there? How do I ensure that the people who are going to answer those controls understand what they need to provide in terms of evidence? Really, that is a starting point. We're still going a lot around boundary and trying to define what the scope should be, right? The second one is really, do we have a timeline? Yes, you do. It's not about, oh my God, if you're not there, the train's left the station or you're way behind. No, 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 no. The ruling just came out. Yes, there is going to be. So you can get started and kind of work way. Even if someone started, and Chris will tell you, Chris started his journey a year back, and he's going to tell you about his experience. So this is not something that it's not like checklist and I'm done. This is not figuring out IT systems. This is more than, this is about handling, storing. I'm printing, I'm molding, I'm preparing widgets, I'm making armory. I have a plant, I manufacture. All of them come under CMMC. It's more than just, in FedRAMP, we used to talk about flow of federal data within IT systems like the cloud. That's completely different. Here it's about, are you printing this? Do you have a manufacturing facility? Do you have a special, like a drone? Are you having an equipment that handles CUI? It's a very complex one. So it's going to require some time, some understanding. And then, of course, everyone knows SSPs, right? Anyone who has done a regulatory audit knows what system security plan is. Same thing, except has a little more things that you need to put in to make sure that you're showing the intent of those objectives and ensuring that you're meeting those controls. There's poems and waivers. The ruling clearly says which ones you can get poems on and which ones you can't. If you do those, you fail. So there's that you need to look out. And of course, spreadsheets, email, SharePoints don't do it. I can tell you, I have a lot of people who, even small to big, it's a lot of work. Hey, I've subscribed to GCC or GCC High. I have my data in it. Am I compliant? No. Is Microsoft compliant? Yes, Microsoft gives you they have their FedRAMP, body of evidence that they can give you, but you just need to still take that and figure out between inherited controls from Microsoft or AWS, shared controls between you and the service provider, and then the one you own. Those all have to be defined. It's a lot of work. So these things are, we see a lot of people figuring out saying, yeah, I bought this, I have, this security tool in the cloud. They tell me they are FedRAMP, their names on the FedRAMP. Great. How have you implemented the tool? Are you meeting that intent of what they have said in the boundary? Is it the same thing with the responsibility matrix? Are you putting that in your SSP for that particular asset? So things like that, So going down to next step. So yes, I just want to give you, but right now, thanks for the hint. We're going to go on ServiceNow. So I'll let Ben start with the demo of both the accelerators, and we'll go from there. Ben?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. Anyway, thanks, Raj. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. So as Raj kind of mentioned earlier, we started our journey with ServiceNow as a vendor. And this we actually started back in 2019. But in 2020, we started building a number of features in ServiceNow and RM that you see in the store today. When you download the RM modules, there are a number of indicators that are in there, and those are the ones that we assisted ServiceNow in building. And so there are 3 classes of indicators in there today. There is the basic one, and then there is the, there is the manual one, there's the basic, and then there is the scripted one that crawls through multiple data and comparing the information that you have in CMDB and validating if this control is passing or not. Now, in the store today, we quickly move on from being a vendor to a platform specialist and building a number of accelerators on the store. Today, we have the FedRAMP, the CMMC Accelerator, the CMMC Contract Flowdown, as well as the SOC 2. But for the purpose of today's meeting, we're going to be just focusing on the CMMC and the CMMC Contract Flowdown Accelerator. The accelerator, it's built on the 800 and 171. As Raj mentioned, we have the level 1 and level 2 controls. The level 3, we don't have that yet, but it's currently in the works that we will eventually release that. But even if you're level 3, you certainly can benefit from using a level 2. Level 3, you're just going to have additional controls, but a bulk of it is going to be level 2 controls that you're going to be adhering to. And then you also have your contract flow down, as Raj mentioned earlier, all the different assets that you got to deal with. Your COI assets, your security protection assets, your specialized asset, in some cases, maybe drones. And then you have your ESP, CSP, as well as all your contractors that you need to manage to make sure that they're adhering to the 800.171 as well. So next slide, please. So today, as part of the demo, we're going to do a little role play, and we have the authorizing official who is technically the compliance manager who will be setting up the assessments. I have the system owner who is basically going to be responsible for providing the evidence and answering the assessment questionnaires that we have, whether this control is in place or not. And then we have the information security officer who is, our CISO Nadia in our system here today, who is kind of, overall managing the security operations of the systems that we're going to be evaluating. All right, so with that said, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let me know if you guys are able to see my screen. Ross, can you confirm that you're able to see my screen that I'm sharing?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So let's get started. So first thing is, how do you find us? You go to a store, you type in CMMC. And guess what? We are the only build partner that has developed a CMMC accelerator in the ServiceNow store today. So it's very easy to find us. You click on any one of these, whether you're doing the CMMC accelerator for your readiness assessment, or you want to download the vendor compliance assessment for your contract flow down assessment. Now, these accelerators do require you to have the RM modules installed in ServiceNow. If you don't have it, this is not going to work. And if you do have the RM installed, you also need to make sure that you have the CAM, which is what the CMMC accelerator rides on. It's the CAM modules in RM. And if you're doing the vendor, the contract flow down piece, that one will require you to have the VRM modules installed as well. All right, so you go ahead and click on any one of these, request for a download, and once you install it, what you will see in your instance is you will see, just typing CMMC here above, you will see that there is two new, it depends on which accelerator you install. Assuming that you install both, then you'll have the CMMC accelerator, and then you also have the CMMC 2.0 contract flow accelerator. So we're going to go ahead and start with the accelerator first, and then we'll cover the contract after that. So the CMMC accelerator, once you install it, there are different sections to it. The first one is the authority document. The authority document is kind of where the magic starts to happen. What we have developed is all of the controls and the, just going to open up the controls that we have here so you can kind of see what's actually in the package when you download and install it. So inside there is 110 controls. And within each of these controls, there are the objective. And in some cases, there are 5 objectives. In some cases, there's maybe only 2 or maybe even just 1. So once you click open this, and I'll go ahead and open up one of the objectives in here. So inside here, like I said, the content that provided for you is exactly mirrors the, the regulations and the rules for CMMC 2.0. The part where you want to pay attention to is the attestation. This is where the questionnaires goes out to the stakeholders, the controls owner, to provide their responses and attach to evidence. So I'm just going to open up one of these and open up the record that we have created here. So these are already all built in. You just got to open it up. And what you can do is, this is sort of in the designer view, and I'm going to open that up as well so you can kind of see what it looks like inside here. So assuming that, some of you guys are very familiar with it, you guys are, familiar with creating your own attestations, right? So this is exactly the same. And one of the nice things about our accelerator is, we try to build everything within the ServiceNow tables. And so when it comes to support customizations, there's very little to worry about. Everything that we do, it goes into the standard table. So in case you ever need to use that data for elsewhere, say, assuming you collected an evidence for one of the requirements for password parameters, and you need that for your SOC, you need that for your high trust, you need that for PCI. And assuming that those assets are the same, you can use that same piece of evidence across multiple frameworks because it's under the same table that you can map. We're not creating any custom table that you have to create additional customizations and support from us. No, this is all ServiceNow solutions and designs and tables. So here, this is the attestation designer, right? We provided a list of questions here and a type of evidence. This is where Raj kind of mentioned that we kind of, create automations with a bit of a human touch because like Raj said, we are a C3 PAL assessor. We know the type of evidence and the type of questions that we're going to be asking as if, imagine if we were coming on site, hey, we would ask you something very similar. And we would ask and examine, very similar type of evidence as well. So in this designer, it's already pre-built. You can come in here and you can modify this to your liking. So assuming that, hey, you know what, this is kind of vague type of evidence, but for me, I know I need to provide a bit more prescriptive descriptions to the stakeholder. Hey, you know what, I want the firewall rules. I want to see the very first line that says denied all to make sure that there is some sort of a ACLs in place that denies all right up front, and then you do a permit all as needed based on business requirements and whatnot. So you can provide that information in here and say, hey, provide this type of evidence. And this is how, once you have done that, this is how it will look. It, when it goes out to the control owner, they would be able to answer these questions, whether it's a yes, no, or maybe you want to create something else that says, hey, is this inherited controls? Maybe, very well aware that, we're only using GCC high. And so a lot of these controls are going to be reliant on what, GCC high provides. But of course, you need to make sure that, you go through that shared responsibility matrix and make sure that indeed, what they're providing is something that you can rely on. And, in some cases, it could be hybrid. They're responsible for some and you're responsible for the other half of it. So this is where you could, provide the answers, and attach the evidence as needed. Okay, I'm going to close that and move on to, this thing is blocking me from the top. Okay. All right, so that's the attestation designer in the authority documentations. All of that is provided to you. You can modify if you need to. They're not locked down. There's a bunch of flexibility there. And the next thing you want to do is you want to go to and create the CMMC boundary. Boundary is kind of like your scoping, right? You need to identify, what's going to be in scope for your CMMC readiness. So in this case here, I just, we have created a sample here where, I have 19 assets that are part of this authorization package that I'm going to be assessing. I've got some COI assets, I have got some security protection assets, and I also have some specialized assets in here as well. So these are the ones that I'm going to be assessing today. Now, once you create your boundary, it doesn't mean that, there's no questionnaires being sent out yet. You need to create a package. The next step is to here create a package. And in this case here, I already have created a package here for Acme, and I'm doing a level 2 assessment. Again, if you're doing a level 3, hey, you could still know using some of the controls in level 2 to automate a bulk of the controls under 800.171. So, all right, so I've gone through this. I've already prepared, what this package is about. I've attached my network diagrams. I've categorized it. It's sort of doing it like a sort of a risk assessment, categorizing, what is this about? This is going to be assessing a COI environment. And I've selected the number of controls that I want to assess. Maybe in some cases, there's 110 controls. And I can go to the select state and say, you know what, I'm just going to be assessing 20 controls because the other 80 or 90 controls has already been assessed in a different authorization package. So in here, this is where earlier we have that little sort of a role play of different owners, right? So I have Nadia assigned here as the system owner. She's going to be the one that is completing the survey, attaching evidence. And now we have her here. She's assigned to all of it. But as we go through the assessment, she can assign to someone else, or we can assign to someone else. Maybe it's a different folks in the network side and the different folks on the server side. And all of these can be, allocated to whoever it is going to be responsible for that specific control or that control objective. And then the authorized official here, this is, I am the I'm the compliance manager where I established this authorization package. I review the evidence. And then I have Nadia here, who is it's the sort of a system security officer who kind of, ensuring that all of the controls are in place as well. So now I created a package. I have 110 controls. I'm going to assess all of it, right? And in cases, they've, completed, they have provided the responses back, and I'm going to look at the controls. And hey, you know what? Nadia indicated that for controls 3.3.7, hey, it's passed. I have the results from her. Or in some cases where, hey, it's a fail, right? I don't have this control in place. I take a look at it. It was assigned to Brian, originally assigned to Nadia, and then she forwards to Brian, hey, Brian, please answer this. Brian would come back and say, I don't have these controls in place. And here is the responses that they provided. Is there documentation identifying periods of inactivities? No, I don't have this in place. And so there's no evidence attached. And I can go ahead and create issues from that. Issues, then you can, from the issue side, of course, all of these can all tie to all of the capability within the RM. You can, connect it to your ITSM for creating a ticket to get this remediated. You can, tie it to your risk statement, to your risk management framework to identify, hey, this control is not in place. What system is it impacting? What risks does it poses? And then you can also tie it to your whole remediation framework as well as part of your ITSM tickets. Now, once that ITSM ticket is resolved, guess what? Nice thing is it feeds into here and say, hey, you know what? This issue has been resolved. It's closed. Now my evidence is going to be compliant for that particular control. Now, these are some of the features that I talked about here. Now, the new features that we had that are currently in the works is putting all of the feedback that we have gotten from our current and past customers is here are some of the features that we really like. And one of the features that all of our customers are looking for is, hey, once I'm done with collecting all of these evidence that provided a narrative of how the controls are met, that provide the evidence, I like to be able to generate an SSP. Out of the box, the CAN modules only support the NIST 853. It doesn't support anything else. So we have created customized our new next release that are coming out in Q1 of 2025. We'll be able to provide and generate an SSP for you. And so this is kind of how the SSP template will look like once the users are created their, provide their evidence, answer the questions they have. This is what the SSP will look like. And now the SSP, the control here is, say 3.3.1. But within that, I have A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? So our control for the next release is going to be more refined. We're going to be, testing the control specifically for A. We're going to be testing control specifically for B, C, D, E, and F. Now, once they responded back and say, assuming that all of these, all 6 controls here are implemented, oh, well, okay, well, the response will be implemented. It will, auto-populate here. The other logics that we add in here is, hey, you know what? I have the top 3 of these are implemented, and then the next 3 is for whatever reason it's not applicable. Okay, it's not applicable, but yet everything is implemented, it will show up as implemented. But if for whatever reason all of these are implemented, but one of them, say F, system access is limited to authorized devices, hey, I don't have that control in place. It's not implemented. Well, guess what? The whole control failed. So we have built those logics in there, and the next best thing that you're going to see is all of the responses when we are automating these is the control owners will be required to supply sort of a narrative. How are you meeting this control? Who's performing it? Who performs the control? Who's reviewing it? What technologies is being used to review it? Is it just through emails, or are we using Sentinel or whatnot? And then how often is it done? So all of those informations will be captured here, and it will be listed in A, B, C, D, E, and F. So a assessor will come in and look at this SSP, say, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed, because now I don't need to say, hey, yeah, you have this control in place, but do you have A, do you have B, do you have C, and do you have E, right? They don't need to go in there because each of these will be specifically listed down as to how each of these objectives are met. So that is something that's in the works right now. And you'll be able to track individual objective. There are 320 of them out of the 110 control. All right. So with that said, Raj, is there anything else you want to add?
No, it's good. It's good. Let's move on. Okay. Then we can.
Yeah. yeah, let me just wrap up we talked about this, and then let's move on to the contract flow now. This is quite a bit of a pain for a lot of the contractors out there as well, having to ensure that your subcontractors are also compliant, right? You got to determine whether they're level 1, level 2. So when you download the accelerator that we have here, it provides the questionnaires, the template for a level 1. If you want to do a level assessment, there's a level 1 questionnaires, and then there's a level 2. And so what that looks like, let me just show you. Assuming that you have created one for a level 2, I'm going to go to one of the packages here that I created for Blue Space system. I created samples for a level 1 assessment, how it looks like, but let's just look at the level 2. So this is the level 2 assessments that I'm measuring against one other vendor, right? Obviously, you don't have just 5 vendors to measure against. Chances are you might have hundreds of them. So in this case here, here's level 2 assessments. I can view the responses. This has already gone out to the vendors, and they're responded back. And I can now then look at these responses that are provided and identifying which controls are in place. They have complete all of these all these check marks on the side in the different families that that's broken it into. 110 controls. It's not refining like we do with the readiness assessment, A, B, C, D, E, and F. It's all grouped together, right? And they say they might say they're fully implemented. I say, great, you're fully implemented. Tell us how you are doing it, and maybe we would even ask for some validations to provide some evidence to give us some assurance that, hey, yeah, you do have these controls in place. Or maybe they say, you know what, we are CMMC certified. Here is our CMMC certifications, and we can just rely on that too, right? So from there, you can either create an issue, you can export the responses and follow up on any sort of remediation issues. But one of the nice things about what we're working on today that's not existing is the scoring system. Now imagine you get the scores back, out of 110. I have 5 that are missing controls off. The way the limitations with ServiceNow today is it's either pass or fail. You get 1 point, you get 0 point, or it's weighted at high, medium, low. It doesn't give you the dynamics that the CMMC scoring system works today. If you pass the control, great, you get 1 point. But you know what? For the same control, if you don't pass it, you get deducted 5 points. So, and some controls are deducted 3 points, some are maybe 2 points, some are 1 point, right? So that dynamics in there is something that we're going to be building, so that when you go through, assessing 100 vendors, you're not going to want to go back and start tallying, exactly what the scoring system is, because end of the day, you need to make sure that they're 88 points or above, right? Minimum 88 points to be passing out of 110. Now they went and they go back, they fix one control. Hey, guess what? I got to now tally up and add that 5 points back, or I got to add, subtract another 5 points. So it gets really cumbersome when you have so many to go through. This is not something you do. So our next accelerator will have that scoring systems built in. When they provide the response back, you can have a real-time visual into exactly, out of my 100 vendors, here are the top 5 that I have fallen below 88, and here are my other remaining ones that are above 88 that I'm good with. Right. So now I just need to follow up that 5.
Right.
All right.
So,
these are the demo that I have today. I'm going to allocate enough time
Dan.
for Raj and Chris.
Yeah. Thanks,
everyone.
Ben. Appreciate it. So just to be, we wanted to just level set here that we want to make sure that if you have invested in ServiceNow, you can use it. We are not a reseller of ServiceNow. We are a partner. We only, make sure that we build use cases. And if you are new, you can, if you don't have IRM, you can contact your ServiceNow salespeople or your partner, and then, you can then probably download this to use. So we come more from a subject matter expertise. So we kind of wanted to give you a little, paint a little picture about, what are the problem statements out there, and then because we live this every day today, and then how automation can help. So simple on that. Now, what I want to do a little bit is shift a little bit to talk about, this is another half that we're very excited, and thank you, Chris, for joining. Chris is I'll give his intro because I'm very excited to have him. He's a CCP. He's an internal audit. He's an internal auditor by practice. He's also a SSP, a security practitioner, has done a number of things. And he started this journey in Q3, Q4 2023. So he's been around CMMC, and we wanted him to come join us to share. I have a few questions for him, and obviously in Q&A he's happy to answer more questions. So Chris, I gave you the intro, so I'll let you talk a little bit about your your, foray into CMMC and CareSource, a little about CareSource, and how you see this going.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. So my name is Chris Knoll, and I am the Senior Manager of IT Controls and Assessments at CareSource. Excuse me. So my primary responsibility is maintaining our quarterly control and IT control process, as well as my team runs our third party or our cyclical audits, like SOC 2, high trust, things like that. Like Raj said, we started our CMMC journey about 1.5 years ago, and I had never heard anything about it before then, so it was all brand new. One of the things I think I did that was the most helpful was going after my CCP. That really helped me have a better understanding of what CMMC really was and what assessors were going to be looking at. And then that really helped during the first thing we did was we did a guided self-assessment with C3PAO that helped us kind of figure out where we were deficient and what gaps we had and where we were strong.
Okay. So Chris, I have a quick question. Stacey, you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Chris, I know you've been a ServiceNow customer for a long time. I would love it if you could share how IRM and TPRM is similar and how it differs with the CMMC use case to other use cases maybe you've implemented.
Sure. So for CMC, so right now, one of my goals is to get as many of our controls into ServiceNow as possible. I really want to see that as a central repository for evidence collection and storage. We have a really good relationship with our internal audit team. They have access to those too, so they're able to self-serve a lot of evidence versus asking us for it. And then our big goal is, test once, report many times. So we keep getting more assessments thrown at us every year, but I can't get more people. So we have to find more efficient ways to do things. And having everything in ServiceNow is really, really helping to provide a consistent look and feel for evidence to auditors, as well as a consistent cadence of tasks for people to do. And CMMC is just flowing right into that. It's the same thing for us. We're just expanding it into that framework now and trying to take what we have currently and add it into it as well.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So another question, almost every DIP contractor in the base the DIP base has gone through some kind of a DFORS, self-assessment, reported SPR scores for years, right? How did you, which you have done too, by the way, you had to do this for years, and you have shared with us how you went through that. How do you see between doing that and now a lift to CMMC? People have been doing this. So 800-171 is not new. Reporting, doing these controls are not new, complying to these controls. How do you see that? Is that a big lift? What do you see from your point of view?
That's a great question. I think the biggest difference I see is, when you're doing a self-assessment, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, I know we're doing that, right? I can check that box. But once you bring in a C3PAO and have to prove that you're doing it, then it becomes do we have it documented in our policies? Can we provide audit-ready evidence that would be accepted by an auditor? Do we know what the auditor is going to be asking for to complete that control? That's where I see the big difference.
Okay, and then what are some of the challenges you're seeing you have TPRM from ServiceNow. You use it today for all your vendor management. What do you see some of those when it comes to CMMC boundary, the challenges with contract flow down, right? You've been working with your contract teams to identify who has CUI. How do you classify them as tier one, level 1 or level 2? How are you managing that? Because it's going to come up to your package.
So internally for our CUI boundary, that's a very difficult thing. And I think everyone's going to struggle with, defining their boundary. And I would just say it's, get started with it and make your best effort and then add as you figure out things as they go along. One of the things that we're working on implementing is we're adding in CUI flags into applications, CIs, entities, things like that, so that as people are adding new things in, they can check that box, right? And then we can have a way of being able to report on those and pull those out and actually integrate those into some automation and reporting. based off those flags. As far as the third-party risk module, that's probably one of the ones I'm most excited about, because we have, I think we've identified somewhere in the range of 60 to 80 third-party vendors that we're going to need to use once our contract goes into effect. And none of them really have any experience with CMMC at all. They have no idea where to even start. So to be able to just shoot out a questionnaire to them that kind of clearly outlines what they, what the controls are, and let them answer it, knowing that they don't have to have like a perfect score, but they can put down what they're doing. That's going to be really helpful, especially since they all, by our requirement, our contract are going to be required to have a SPURS score logged with the DoD. So I'm really looking forward to when the next version comes out that's going to automatically calculate that score, because I really don't have the time to go around and one by one go through and create these spreadsheets of scoring spreadsheets to come up with people's scores. So to be able to automate that is going to be really huge.
Great. You're a CCP, right? So you talked earlier about intent of meeting CMMC controls, right? So for someone who's new, are the rules prescriptive enough to say, thou shalt do this, this is how you do? There are 320 objectives we as C3POs measure against, right? So what's your thought on that?
So on the surface, it can seem that way. I feel like 800-171 is more prescriptive than like an 853, but there's still a lot that's open to interpretation. And one thing that going through the CCP class showed me is kind of the backside of the assessment and what guidance assessors are given for what fulfills a control. And the one example I always give people that is an absolutely extreme example of something that an auditor could request for, but one of the controls is that all your firewalls are FIPS 140-2 validated. By the language for assessors, one thing they can do during their on-site visit, they can technically request to physically see your firewalls and make sure the tamper-proof stickers are intact and that the cryptographic module in the firewall has not been tampered with. So I mean, that's a level of detail that I don't think anyone's going to have happen, but it kind of goes to show, I don't think many of us would have thought that it would go that deep or had the potential to go that deep, but I'm sure there's going to be an auditor out there that just thinks that's going to be fun to do and is going to ask somebody if they can do it.
Okay. So, but actually bringing that though, so we have a few audits we're going to be working on, and we do have to visit, places like as far as north as Alaska. And the idea here is that because they are not necessarily IT systems, they are specialized equipment. They're things that you put on a manufacturing floor. Because unlike FedRAMP and others, this is not about just handling data within IT or flow of federal data within IT systems or cloud. This is more about, transmitting, storing, processing COI data that could be anywhere. It could be making widgets, it could be making plans, it could be making drones, things that are, so a lot of on-site visits, to your point, is not just looking at the tag in the firewall, but also making sure that you're visiting, or when you do an on-site visit, there are things you have to look for that can have COI data. So thank you for that. The last question I would, and then I'm going to break for QA, is give us some guidance. You and I had this call a lot of times about, I always ask, hey, can you give guidance to some of our other customers or prospects we speak to us? They ask us, where do you start? What's your thought process? How did you go? You had to go to your management. You had business, the people who are working on the DoD business, you had to satisfy their requirements to meet RFPs and things. How did you go about trying to evangelize? Where do you start?
So I think it all starts with the CUI boundary, and that can be really kind of daunting and intimidating because, and I've said this before, I think a lot of the current people doing presentations on CMMC are doing a bit of a disservice, because the first thing they lead off with is False Claims Act, and it's a really big scare tactic of, if you get anything wrong, you're going to be fined millions and millions of dollars. And I don't think that that's quite accurate, because I don't think many of us are purposely trying to defraud the government in our contracts. So as long as we're putting our best effort forward and, there's not documentation pointing back to fraud, then I don't think people have to really worry that much. So, for us, what I did was, we have PHI flags in our items in the CMDB. And so I just exported a list of all those items and then started going down and seeing like, which ones do we think we're actually going to use for this project? And that was like the initial list that we started with, was it perfect? No, but it was a starting point, and we've built on it since then continually as we go and identify new systems or new things that we need to incorporate into our CY boundary.
Okay, great. Well, we are at time. I'm excited, 1:45, right on dot. So we have a few minutes for people Q&A to Chris or any of us. And again, thank you all for participating. Thanks, Chris, Stacy, and others for putting this together. So I appreciate your time. So we'll open up for Q&A.
I'm going to jump in. We have a question from Libby Horn. Does the CMMC Accelerator include capturing evidence for each control included in the assessment in addition to the attestations?
Okay, clarify. So for each control, yes, you can attach evidence. Yes, we tell you what type of evidence. We give you sample evidence and you can attach it. Yes. Does that answer the question?
I believe so, but I'm going to, Libby, please ask another one if it did not. So we have a few more minutes. Stacy, I'm going to hand it back to you. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
Well, then
Can I say one more thing while we're on here that I think is helpful?
Yeah.
So one thing that I'm really looking forward to with the CMMC Accelerator is the auto SSP generation. So right now we're currently have an 853 based SSP, and that doesn't really work very well for 801.71 environments. So I'm going to have to maintain 2 SSPs because I don't like giving auditors more information than they need. So I don't want my 853 auditors seeing everything in 801.71 and vice versa. So, you know, to me, I call these like Kool-Aid drinking moments, right? If it all works out perfectly, you know, my goal is to have all these attestations built into ServiceNow so that annually they go out and request all this information. It's updated automatically, and I can just hit a button and update my SSP for 801.71 and not have to go and track down, you know, 50 different people to get control updates and things like that. So I see that as being a huge time saver.
Thank you. Chris, how many SSPs you write today?
Right now I have, well, 3 is what I'm currently working on. I'm hoping it works down to 2, but right now I have 3 that I'm working on.
Okay. And you pretty much have every regulation under the sun, right? HIPAA, HITECH, PCI, SOC 2, ISO, CMMC, State RAM. Did I miss anything?
No, that covers it all.
So you got everything. You have every use case you can build. So great. Okay.
Oh.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, wait, do we have more information on how the 800.171 SSP generation would work?
Ben, do you want to take that question? They're asking about, is it SSP? I assume that's a question.
Yeah,
Ben.
yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. So how that's going to work is what? Yeah, the SSP is like the highlight of the accelerator. It's like everybody's asking for that, and everybody's looking forward for that to come out. So, and you know the value that it provides. Obviously, you guys are well aware. Hey, I don't have to write a 400 pages SSP. Right. So the way it works is the questions will go out. They'll provide the responses back. It will capture whether it's implemented, not implemented, or inherited, or whatever it may be. And it may also capture some information like. You know, who provides controls, how does it perform, when does it perform, how often it's performed. All that would be captured, and it would, you know, it would be stored in the ServiceNow table. And at the end of the assessment, or whenever you want to assess it, even if it's not complete and you want to just kind of get a gauge of, you know, how the SSP looks like, there's a button toward the end that says generate SSP. You click that button, literally a file is created, you download it, you open it up, and it would look like the SSP that you would normally expect to see.
Great.
And the,
Thank
and the
you.
SSP
Okay.
would, includes your, your, if you have attached network diagrams in there, your system boundaries, the users and all this information that you normally typically would have in the SSP plan at the beginning part of it, all of the informations would be in there as well. And then it would then flows down to all of the controls, responses, narrative, and all that stuff, on the other 2/3 of the SSP.
Awesome. I'm going to actually end the webinar, the information webinar. I'm going to say the slide that I'm sharing are 2 QR codes. One goes directly to the ServiceNow store, so you can download today. Again, we want to make sure that this is practical, that you can actually get started today instead of wait a million weeks, right? Get started today so you can scan. That has the ServiceNow logo. And then the second QR code goes to our website. So if you have any questions, you can submit an intake form and let us know, or we are on LinkedIn as well, so you can send us a message there. Anyways, have a wonderful rest of the week and a happy holiday, and advanced Happy New Year. So thank you everyone for your time, and we will see you again.